Good morning, Neron.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for asking.
Welcome to the Lift Oneself podcast, where we break mental health stigmas through conversations. I'm your host, Nat Nat, and we dive into topics about trauma and how it impacts the nervous system. Yet we don't just leave you there. We share insights and tools of self-care, meditation, and growth that help you be curious about your own biology. Your presence matters. Please like and subscribe to our podcast. Help our community grow. Let's get into this. Oh, and please remember to be kind to yourself.
Welcome to the Lift Oneself podcast, Neron. I am so thankful you're here with me.
No, thank you for having me.
I was on your podcast a few weeks ago, and so I had asked you in that conversation to come and join me so that you can infect my listeners with your energy and your insights and your lived experience. So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Me too. Me too. It was a very powerful conversation, and that meditation has lived. And you said something to me at the end. You said, "Be kind to yourself," and you know, out of the whole experience, those four words had a lasting impact.
Oh, I'm very thankful because I leave that with everybody. That is my embodiment that I've practiced, and it's just a way of being now. And every time I say it, it's like I'm saying it to other people, yet it's also a reminder for myself of are you being kind? Are you being kind to yourself, Natalie? Are your defense mechanisms activated? Release it, engage with the fear, engage with what's going on inside, and to have kindness with it, not this berating in condemnation or not enough, not good enough language that the nervous system can start to activate in us. So I'm thankful. Thank you for sharing that with me.
Thank you.
Will you join me in a guided meditation so we can ground ourselves in our breath? So for the listeners, some of you guys are maybe driving or having to run or use your visual. So please don't close your eyes. I want you to be safe as well as everybody else. Yet the other prompts you're able to follow. So Neron, get comfortable in your seat and gently close your eyes. And you're going to begin breathing in and out through your nose. And you're going to bring your awareness to watching your breath go in and out through your nose. You're not going to try and control your breath. You're just going to keep your awareness on watching your breath and become aware of the rhythm. There may be sensations or feelings coming up in the body. Let them come up. You're safe to feel. You're safe to let go. Surrender the need to control. Release the need to resist and just be. Be with your breath. Drop into the body. Stay with your breath. There may be some thoughts or some memories that may have come up. It's fine. Don't push them away. Just bring your awareness to focusing on your breath. Stay with your breath and drop deeper into the body. Always staying with the breath. Neron, I'm going to ask you in your mind to create an intention you have for this conversation, for the podcast, for the listeners, and for ourselves. And when you've created that intention, I'll ask you to release it in your mind, dropping down into your nervous system, down your throat, down into your chest, filling your heart, down into your stomach, into your life force. Continue staying with your breath. Allowing that intention to surround your energy force while still staying with your breath. Dropping further into your body, allowing that intention to grow. Now, staying with your breath at your own time and at your own pace, you're going to gently open your eyes while staying with your breath. How's your heart doing?
Good. Good.
Can you let the listeners know who Neron is?
Neron is complex. Currently, I teach mindfulness and yoga in schools in New York City. And the last 2 years, we've expanded to teaching seniors. So I work in some senior facilities as an instructor. Our company name is Urban Yogis. We've been around for approximately 10 years. We've seen some transitions. It started in Jamaica, Queens, under the leadership of Erica Ford from Life Camp. And it was centered around bringing best mindful practices into communities that suffered violence, which I come from a community of high violence. My introduction to yoga and mindfulness practices did not come through that program. I was introduced to yoga because of a running accident. I ran too much and I tightened my back, and I walked in and I said, I believe yoga can help me stretch. So that's how I got introduced to yoga and energy work. But working with that company, with the company that I now am the director and CEO of, has offered me the ability to go into the communities that I came from and to share these practices. And when we share the practices through our lived experiences, we're able to have great impact. I've also been pastoring, preaching for some years. And most people, when I say that I preach, they laugh and say, well, how can you be a preacher and still practice yoga? And yoga and mindfulness actually deepened my faith. I was going through a period in my life in my 30s where I got away, although I was pastoring, I still got away from the things that was, when you first start out, you're passionate about. You think that you're going to save the world. Kind of got away from those things. And church became a business. And through meditation, I found a spark in my relationship with God. Because what meditation has done for me is it helped me to tap into some of those subconscious thoughts that I've had to wrestle with all of my life. So that's who I am. I'm a dad, a husband, and I'm here today to share with you, Nat.
When you communicated the violence aspect of your life, I felt the deep fear and sadness in my system.
Mm.
And I know in our episode, I had held a space for a minute because when you were explaining about, your childhood and what you grew up in, at times we don't take a moment to honor our experiences. We just kind of shove it away, not realizing, well, it's what, strengthens the faith, like you said. And it also strengthens the relatability for people that are coming down the path. And I think sometimes it can be overwhelming because it's a big download at times. Yet I just wanted to, share that with you, that I can feel that energy and that it's carried.
It's interesting that you would say that. So a huge part of my journey was I detached myself from that. I just really started talking about that part of my life, and I had to, because just because I detached from it didn't mean that it still didn't live within me. And all of our experiences live within us, and they don't teach us that at church, right? So you feel like, oh,
Just pray it away. Just pray it away.
yeah, just pray it away, yeah, right. And then you find yourself in precarious positions where you embarrassing your family, or you think that things that you just detached yourself from died, and they're not gone, and then they have a way of rearing up at the most inopportune times. So what I had to learn to do is attach that part of my story back to its proper place, but give a different perspective, not to where the fact that I grew up in a single parent household as a badge of honor or a badge of dishonor. The fact that we was highly affected by crack cocaine in our community, what science called negative bias. We had compounded negative bias with the bacon and the fried chicken and collard greens with the hog mog every day, the slave diet that we inherited, and all of those things that come along with that living. And then when you grow up in certain environments, and this is of every ghetto in America, there's a 2 hour, most people don't go outside of their 2 mile radius. But within that 2 mile radius, all things are the same. There's no real difference. And you could have dropped me at one point in my life in any projects in the world, and it would be the same story.
And, once you come to educate yourself of what trauma is, as I define it, is separation from self. So separation from God, the law, universe, whatever name you call your higher source. I think with myself, what impacted me too is because I grew up in a Catholic religion, so Christianity. It's this sentence of don't fear. Yet your nervous system needs fear, like there's healthy fear. Yet as soon as you would feel fear, it would be like this messaging that you're not supposed to feel this, and that it's a bad thing and it's an evil thing, where it's like, well, if I don't, befriend this, I'm not able to hear, well, what's activating this fear? What's on the other side of the fear that's making it come in? It's no different than the Wizard of Oz, where the wizard had this big grand voice and everybody was so afraid. But then there was this little tiny guy
Yeah, yeah,
that, that
yeah.
popped out. So now
And,
that you go ahead.
no, because I wanted to tap into the fear thing. Like growing up where we did, that fear became a part of our defense mechanism. Like you walk into a setting and you start to get that gut feeling. You're like, oh, this don't feel right. And if you listen to it, you can get yourself out of situations. So it's, how do we allow fear to impact us? Like, is it making us anxious and we're not resting and we're up all night? Because that's not going to change the mechanism. It's like, what are we going to do to face whatever the fear is?
Exactly. And as I define it, there's the word of the ego. And for me, the ego is the defense mechanisms of the nervous system protecting your vulnerability. And to only be in flow in that infinite source, you have to go through the nervous system to get to your vulnerability, to be in your worth, to hear the voice of God and be connected. Yet, if you do not allow yourself to face yourself, to see those defense mechanisms, you don't even realize what it has mutated in a way of thinking it's protecting you, but now as an adult, it's causing more harm. And really, trusting. I think a lot of times too, a lot of children were separated from their intuition, their gut. Yet a lot of, as you said, where you grew up, in the environment that you grew up, you had to rely on your intuition because you had to listen to that bad boy when there were things that were on high alert. The disassociation is very healthy. A lot of people berate themselves and get frustrated with their biology. And it's like, no, that was a method of protection. There was too much stimulus and fear that it would have short circuited your psyche. So now that you've started the integration progress, what is your relationship with fear? What does that look like?
So I have this analogy. Fear is a tenant in my house, but it's not the landlord. Fear used to be the landlord. Like, fear on different levels, whether it was self-sabotage, fear of success, fear of financial gain, because we grow up in a space, and I had to deal with this over the last 2 years through my mindfulness, right? Grow up in a space where you lacked, and you believe that lack is supposed to be your commonplace. So even if you make in grounds on success or in grounds, you wind up losing everything because you're afraid of what that looks like. And subconsciously, you don't feel as if you're worth it. Fear of intimacy, not sex, but intimacy, like exposing ourselves. Because when you grow up in certain environments, I'm not even going to use the environment. People just sometimes just protective. Like we're scared to really be vulnerable. We're scared to talk about certain topics, and that's where true intimacy comes. As an instructor, as a teacher, you can't connect. People feel when you're not real, right? There's no connectivity. So I had to really, really deal with certain levels of fear, and without overcompensating by being arrogant in the things that I was good at. Because what usually happens is, for me, I only really like to discuss the things that I know that I'm good at discussing, right? But I come across as if I know it. Not a know-it-all, but when I'm finished, you're gonna know I know it. You know what I mean? But that was also fear-based, because what I am saying is, I don't want you to challenge me in the things that I don't know. Because now I feel like, so out of fear, I have to shout loud to say, oh no, but I understand this, you know? So fear lives here now, but fear no longer controls those levels of me.
I think sometimes too that, that confidence that you're speaking of, that it's like I'm presenting what I know, is I think also too that there might be this defense mechanisms that I've always had to be loud to express myself because people were not willing to listen. People were not willing to see things from a different perspective. So it's like I had to enforce my space and kind of justify, because there wasn't safety and there wasn't any respect of listening. So that activation comes up where it's like I feel very assertive, yet I can relate to that language also, and I catch myself because there's sometimes I'm doing podcasts and a message comes through and I'm speaking to somebody, and there was one I did with a person and I had my son listen. I was like, was I like defensive and like really enforceful? And he's like, no, you were just telling her a part that she didn't see about herself. And it was very opening. It's also for me having the safety of, I know what I know, and sharing that gift, which in society, it's playing the balance of that, I find.
Yeah, but see, this is the thing. As thought leaders, you have to have a thought. And as thought leaders, you have to challenge people to think. And a lot of times we take passivity to indicate humility. No. Humility comes where I am a thought leader. I can agree to disagree, but I'm humble enough to stand on my truth and move the conversation along without being disrespectful.
I love it. Yeah.
I used
And
to didn't be able to do that.
I get that. And I would go into dimming. I would go into passivity of, okay, well, I want a sense of belonging, so let me not disrupt things, because I'm a critical thinker. And
And I
sometimes
would
people
go
are,
into disruption because I grew up in an area where we had to fight for so I had to really get to the place where I didn't have an enemy to be successful. Whether it was, I'm gonna prove to my dad that I'm this. I'm gonna prove to this. So then what happens is you start to create enemies. And when you don't have any enemies, if an enemy is fueling my success, because I need somebody to fight, I'd have to have my Goliath, right? And every day I'm up. How is that a motivating factor? If I'm only motivated by proving somebody else wrong, when I start finding people to prove wrong, I start creating enemies within my head. I start creating enemies within my inner circle. And before you know it, you're by yourself and you're back at square one, not able to get anything done because you now become your own enemy.
yeah. Yeah. And I understand on intellectually understanding that need of validation and needing to get that approval. I also understand physically how there is a chemical release that's going on with that. Because when you get into arguments, there's adrenaline. So it's being addicted to that adrenaline. And then it's like, okay, well, you can create that adrenaline in a different way, not combative and having to feel a sense of I need to be validated and I need to have that approval outside of myself. And that's its own journey and process to, again, like I say, befriend your nervous system, befriend your biology, be curious of what these defense mechanisms are so they can surrender. Because what I know to be true, there's no overriding biology. Like you can try to override that bad boy and it's gonna
Yeah,
hit
it's
you
gonna,
right back again. So
yeah.
it's like, okay, you slam the door, let me find the safety and let me create the space so that I can validate things. For you as a man, do you feel safe to explain or express that you're afraid or that you're scared?
That's the fear of intimacy, right? Because there's a level of vulnerability that has to take place, and it's funny. As a man, there's two things that I've learned over my 49 years. Your uncles would look at the girl and be like, "She like you, right? She." And then you go to the next room. She like you too, so everybody like you, right? And then you start to get these seeds planted in your head that it's okay to be right with this one. It's okay to be with that one. So I can share a piece of myself with this person. I can share a piece of myself with that person. Nobody's going to get the full me, right? That comes with that level of fear, right? Someone may know that I'm afraid of some things, but they'll never really understand the full level of fear. But the woman now is being taught in the same house, don't go over there with that boy. You better save yourself. Don't give the milk away unless they're buying a cow. And you've created in a community a man who can't say no and a woman that always say no. So there's a level of clash there because they're taught to say no. So there has to be a barter. When I'm giving myself, if I come across as afraid or speaking about my fears, it doesn't just lead off to vulnerability. It also, to me, triggers off instability because I came in a place where you fought for everything that you got. If you didn't, there's not. If you don't fight, you ain't gonna eat. You know what I mean? So, but is that the real reality? This is where I am right now in my paradigm. Is that a real reality? Is it okay? Like my 10-year-old son, yesterday, after the basketball game, he got so upset that he started crying. Now, my oldest son is 21. If my oldest son would have cried, I would have yelled at him. I would have made it worse. What are you crying for? Don't show nobody, right? And youngest, I embraced him. I thought I almost went off on a coach, because now I'm protecting. So I'm finding the balance, and as I get older, it's easier. It becomes easier to talk about some things that I'm fearful of, like fear of success, fear of financial freedom that I never knew existed. So and I'll talk about them on my podcast now. Whereas if you listen to me for 5 years, I was never this vulnerable. So I guess I am getting to a place where I can express some vulnerability, but it's not a commonplace.
Yeah. And thank you for this vulnerability, because some people like to give the image that they have it all together. And it's like, no, this is where I am in my process. And thank you for showing what that repair looks like in parenting. Because the way I parented my oldest to how I parented twins,
Yeah.
and then my oldest gets jealous and it's like, you never did
Mine,
this for me.
you didn't do
Like,
that for me. It's like,
it'll-
all right, I was messed up.
and I had to, I did that conversation with my oldest and took responsibility for my wrongs to revalidate him that he did see it right. I didn't know how to contain the fear that I had, and I projected it on you. So really, doing that repair in that place, I can't take back in the past, but I can stand in the things that I did that were harm and give back your validation that you did nothing wrong.
Wow. Something popped up to me, and I think I need to say this to someone that's listening in your audience. Although I have this cloak where I feel like no one can see my fears, people who are close to you identify your fears first before and if they love you, they care about you, they're going to protect you from your own fear without even embarrassing you or making you feel that you are afraid. And that's why relationships are important. And one of the things that the universe does, not the universe in its perfect form, but the universal laws in its imperfect way that we have to live within, it tears relationships apart, because man is not just homo sapien, man is homo religious, which means that within us it's a yearning to be in a community, it's a yearning to be in a tribe. That's how come our youth will get beat into a gang. They'll go to college and get beat into a fraternity or sorority just so that they can feel like they're a part. Now, I grew up in the street, but I was never a part of a gang. If I can't be at the top of the pyramid, I've always had this mindset. If I can't be at the top, if I can't be the influencer, if I'm not in the back when the money's being counted, I don't want to be a part of it. If I got to get my ass kicked to be a part of it, I ain't down. Excuse my language. That was just me, and that's something that's always been me. I don't mind going left when everybody else, but if you're listening and you're going through that and you feel like you're not being vulnerable, know that the person that's your tribe, because the laws of attraction will send you a tribe. Someone in that tribe sees you, and they're covering your fear without you even noticing it.
And it's a beautiful thing that when you are with those people, that they can be that reflection for you to see your own fears without
Yeah.
feeling like it's condemnation or that it's imperfection, that you can reveal your raw truth without having to robe yourself back up. You can be in that nakedness and be able to start to explore in this territory that feels so overwhelming. That safety with somebody else makes it that, oh, I'm capable of hugging this kind of monster that I feel and allow it to be integrated in me and use its energy, not get rid of it. It's like there's an energy that can be used.
That's what happened in the first love, right? When you, like the first person, you never love like you loved the first time. Right? But there's something that happens over time when we start to depreciate the value of that. And we used to be excited about going home, and I was like, oh, gotta go home to the old ball and chain. And we start saying these things to us, and then we walk in, and that's why they say it's a thin line between love and hate, the polarization of love and hate. The same things that we fell in love with, the person that covered our fears, right, is the same thing that we now despise about them. And no one goes into a marriage, goes into a relationship, goes into a parenting situation with love, not a parenting situation with anything else, saying, I'm going to just mess this up. Right? 10 years from now, I'm not even going to want to be in the same room with this person, because something is lost in the communication over the process of time. And it's not that you don't like the person, because if you sat down and communicated with them again, you're going to be like, Dad, I see why I fell in love with them. It's just that somewhere along the line, we can't find the words to say how we feel anymore. Whereas before, in bliss, the words come so much easier.
Yeah. And it's having to see our own work.
Yeah.
Because bliss, it's like, oh, everything's going your way. Yet when it doesn't go your way, can you express and feel your feelings? And I think that's what has been lacking in a lot of conversations, is that intimacy of having emotions in conversations, and you not using it as a weapon towards me. And that's what happens in relationships.
Yeah. Like, I have a best friend. My best friend just came home. He did 8.5 years. And we grew up as brothers in each other's house. And he watched all of my evolutions. I started preaching when I was 24 years old, but I was heavy in the church. I was into music heavily. I wrote, sing, do all this other stuff. My daughter just got accepted to Howard University as a musician. So
Congrats.
she's the new musician at the house. Although I still do my thing when I have the chance. He said to me, "This is the most evolved I've ever seen you." Now, this is a guy I grew up with in the street. He went through the journey through church, where I supposed to have been at the apex of my understanding, and I would see me fall, lose everything on a number of occasions. We talk. I can talk my fears to him, because we both have some of the similar fears, some of the similar things that we're going through. And he's like, "Wow, people." Now, if you reach a level of success or a level of prominence, and then you have a fall in front of the world, right? My fear of success was always that I would fail in success. But having a church split, I was a pastor of a large church, condominiums, all that. Having a church split, and you're in the center of it, and everybody, it's like I couldn't even walk in the store without thinking that people was talking about me.
Mm-hmm.
But then having to go through that and realizing, all right, that 2-mile radius doesn't define me. Having people that you've housed and got jobs blatantly sit down and just lie and say certain things. You're like, Dad, it was my discernment that far off. I had these people in my homes. I had these, like, what's wrong with me that I couldn't see how people really felt. It's not. It's just that the experience I had to go through, and I had to go through in order to become who I am today. Because if I had not gone through that experience, if I had not gone through and suffered great loss, I would not have evolved.
And have the lived experience of understanding what lack and scarcity can do to humans. Because it's not the discernment of, when people feel safe, they're, like I said, when you get your way and you feel safe, you're one person. All of a sudden, take that away, you get to see true colors of people. Yet those true colors are they still in lack and scarcity? Because the survival mind will do some very horrific things.
Yes,
Horrific.
on both ends. Because we often talk about what people did to us. We never tell a story of what provoked them.
Yeah. Gotta talk about that. There's people want to find a root, and it's like there won't be a root. Like, you will not, because whatever somebody did, there was an impact from that, and then that, and then that, and then that. And it's like, okay, where I appreciate mindfulness. It's like, do not get stuck in the rocking chair where you think you're doing movement, which you are, but you're not getting anywhere. And that's where this trying to analyze and find that root, it's like, okay, be right now, have the radical compassion, have that radical honesty, and feel what you're feeling, yet also see that, what are human beings? And if people haven't gone into their portal inside to see their inner world, they're oblivious of what they're doing. They have no idea. And that, when you are self-attacked and you've been harmed by somebody, it takes a lot of work not to want to hurt them, not to want to harm them. Like it's this thing of, oh, we'll turn the other cheek. And it's like, wait a minute, like, do you understand psychologically and emotionally how difficult that is?
Mm. And we come up with catchphrases like hurt people, hurt people. Well, no, sometimes hurt people just go in the room and cry. But so this is the thing that I've experienced or I've discovered, because we practice. We practice prayer, we practice mindfulness, we practice whatever it is that we do for our religious rituals, if we have any. But this is the thing that I learned, that all those years we are taught to look without. Like the mindset of the Christian context is like, lift your hands in the air and look up, and God is going to pour out some blessings, right? And you have people right now that have gone through their experience, and they're just waiting for God to show up. He may not come when you want him, but he's going to be there, right? But when the showing up portion that I've had to learn is all from within. And the problem with looking within is that when we look within, we see some mean and nasty stuff. We say, look at the man in the mirror, but when we look within the man in the mirror, there's some stuff about us that we don't like, that we suppressed. And all of our lived experiences live in our nervous system. I was about to say the body, but see, live within our nervous system, and they're traveling messages that goes throughout our body that causes cancer if we don't deal with it, that causes tension, causes inflammation, that causes sickness, and some of the stuff that we are fighting with disease-wise in our bodies, it's because we're not willing to put in the work of looking within.
When you first look, it's like, whoo, because there's these perceptions and these masks that we wear that we think we're this thing or this person, yet to look inside and accept our flaws, it's like, oh no, I won't be accepted out in the world. Yet once you can accept all of you and not do a la carte, then that's where this healing and this profound transformation and change. And in that, it doesn't always mean that the environment is going to change. It's how you show up in it, how you engage with yourself in it. And then that changes your energy field and then the frequency. And like you said, it changes the way that people start coming into your atmosphere. Because we think we have to grasp and go get things, where it's like, no, you attract like a magnet. And so you have to clean out your magnet to be able to attract what it is that you want. And I think sometimes when people are praying and they're asking for things to leave or wanting their blessings, it's like, do you actually even know what you need?
No, we don't. And that's you preaching right there, because the scripture says you have no thought, take no thought on tomorrow, for you know not what you need. Right? And which one of you can add any length of time to your day by worrying? Look at the grass in the field. This is so I was reading these scriptures, never realizing that these were all mindful practices.
Yeah. Yeah. How is your relationship with death?
I've never been asked that. You just you saw my face. Like, if anyone knows me, they won't like if I come to the hospital. I have a horrible gift of being able to tell if somebody's about to die. And in those moments, the person gravitates towards me energetically, and regardless of what's going on, and I get this feeling. So I don't know what led you to ask that, but that's one of the gifts that I had at an early age that I try to suppress.
Can we change the language of it, please?
Oh, you asked the question. I was being honest, so now let's change the language.
As I said, I let intuition and intention, and we're both understanding of being a vessel and having that language. You said that this is a horrible gift.
Well, all right. All gifts are good. It's just draining, right?
It is.
It's draining, and it builds, and it brings back trauma that I probably suppress.
And parts of you that you've probably berated because you see the expression on other people and the fear, not recognizing that you are the doula to help them transition to the other side of love. You're that face of safety. You're that doula to help them birth over to the other side. But it feels like nobody's equipped you to really understand that power.
No.
Because
Never
death
heard
feels
it.
like a curse.
Yeah.
But that death doula, that doula of seeing and being able to hold that space, and all of the experience that you have, it's now like recognizing, let me honor this gift. And if people are willing, I can help them to feel peace with this transition, to give language, to have a vessel where somebody could listen to them.
You know, I probably preached over 200 and some plus funerals in 20 years. So maybe even more, because so that has always been a part of what I've done, but I've never really looked at it that way. And I thank you for that, for helping me reframe my mindset around that. Now I don't even talk about this. So this was awesome. Now you guys see firsthand, and I know that everyone who follows Nat know that she's a very powerful vessel. But this was in real time, and I just thank God that you use your gifts the way that you do.
It's all about unity. And I see more and more that the people that come into my atmosphere, there were certain gifts that they didn't know how to navigate in, and nobody was a mentor for them. And because it disrupted around, they didn't understand the value of it. It's like a wild horse. I don't know how to ride this thing, and I keep getting bucked and bitten, kicked, and I just want to look okay that I could ride the horse. So I want the people to appreciate, yet really seeing what that is. So I'm thankful that we could hold the space for that perception to change for within yourself, to see it in a different way and to relate with it in a different way, because it's very uncomfortable. I want to bring you into a reflective question.
Okay.
I want to ask you to bring your awareness right now and to go back to your 18-year-old self. And you have 3 words to tell your 18-year-old self to carry you through the journey to right now. What would those words be?
It's all okay.
Do you think your 18-year-old self would have listened to that? No.
18-year-old me was not listening.
Like most of us. Are you willing to share what your intention was in the meditation?
Oh, so my intention in the meditation was to show up and to be present with all of me, like for whatever questions that was asked, to really be present in that, and to give a side of me that I just to show up.
And I think that intention was well served.
Thank you.
There's some things that were probably in the shadows that really got the light of your awareness. And it's like, okay, we're ready to go into this next dimension. So I know many listeners now are like, okay, Nat, hush your mouth and let me find out where I can find Neron. So can you let the listeners know what you have to offer and where they can find you?
Well, we have a podcast called Walk in Victory Podcast, and we air every day. And we interview people centered around mindfulness, best business practices, and stuff like that, financial literacy. We bring you the best. We sit you at the feet of the masters. Beginning in May, we're going to do Monday Night Mindful Movements online, where we're going to, from 7 to 8:30, I'm going to be hosting a yoga class and meditation. And Sunday mornings, I didn't name it yet, but we do have our online service community, and I'm opening it up now to people who want to explore the scriptures with me in a mindful way. We do have, I am a Christ-centered person, but because of my training and certification through the Chopra Institute and through working with the people that I've worked with over the years, it helped me to expand and not to take the scriptures out of context, but to actually place them into the text that they need to be, along with my theological prowess. So I'll send the links for anyone who's interested in meeting with us. And I thank you for allowing me to even share with your audience.
Oh, of course, it's been an honor. Thank you for the alchemy that you have done in your life, Neron. Taking those impurities and transforming them into gold, and not only just keeping it for yourself, you're sharing it with the masses. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Is there anything that you want to leave the listeners?
The most powerful words that you can ever use in your life is I am. I am. I understood that there was power in I am, but when I learned that I am not what I am not first, I am not Neron. I am not a mindful coach. I am not a pastor. I am not a father. I just am. And when I lend room for that I am to breathe within me, I can be a better father. I can be a better pastor. Because what do I need to be today? So as you are meditating, just strip yourself of your titles and hum to yourself, sing to yourself, repeat to yourself, I am. And whatever comes up for that day, whatever comes up in that meditation is probably what you're going to need to be, because the one thing that I learned about the solar plex, our gut, and the solar system is that they're connected. And it speaks to us, but we have to be willing to listen.
I don't know if you hear the birds in your background. Do you hear them?
Yes.
And they came on after you revealed some things. So really, for me, amplifying that, the safety of acceptance and allowing that light to really shine brightly, because birds only sing when it's safe. And so you are continuously creating safety around you and willing to do that journey inwardly to bring those shadows into the light of your awareness. So thank you for the warrior work that you're doing, Neron. It's greatly appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Please remember to be kind to yourself.
Hey, you made it all the way here. I appreciate you and your time. If you found value in this conversation, please share it out. If there was somebody that popped into your mind, take action and share it out with them. It possibly may not be them that will benefit, it's that they know somebody that will benefit from listening to this conversation. So please take action and share out the podcast. You can find us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok under Lift Oneself. And if you want to inquire about the work that I do and the services that I provide to people, come over on my website, come into a discovery call, liftoneself.com. Until next time, please remember to be kind and gentle with yourself. You matter.